Hey guys, tonight we begin with one of the strangest chapters in human history, medieval medicine, a world where knowledge, fear, hope, and absolute confidence walked hand in hand into rooms that smelled strongly of herbs and very questionable decisions. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I always find it fascinating seeing how many people willingly travel back with me into historical situations that would almost certainly end badly for us. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft nighttime atmosphere, and let's slowly step into a world where becoming sick was frightening for reasons that had very little to do with the illness itself. Imagine waking up in a medieval town sometime around the 1300s. The first thing you notice is noise. Horses moving over stone streets, merchants shouting, church bells echoing through narrow alleys, smoke drifting lazily into the sky from fireplaces and kitchens. But beneath all of that sits another reality. One people rarely escaped. Disease was everywhere. There were no antibiotics waiting quietly in cabinets, no pharmacies glowing late at night, no emergency numbers to call. A simple infection could become a death sentence with astonishing speed. A cut on your hand while chopping wood could become swollen tomorrow, painful the next day, and by the following week, people around you might begin speaking in softer voices. Life expectancy itself was uncertain enough that survival often felt less like a guarantee and more like an ongoing negotiation. And in the middle of all this stood the medieval physician, a figure wrapped in long robes, carrying books, herbs, and tremendous confidence. Confidence mattered because uncertainty frightened people. Patients wanted answers. They wanted explanations. And doctors had explanations for almost everything. The human body, according to popular medical theory inherited from ancient traditions, contained invisible balances and natural harmonies that determined health. Illness wasn't random. Illness meant something inside had shifted out of order. Maybe your body had become too hot, maybe too cold, too dry, too wet. Maybe invisible forces had fallen out of alignment and required correction. It sounds strange now, but there was a strange elegance to it. Humans naturally want the world to make sense. We want patterns. We want reasons. If suffering exists, surely there must be a cause behind it. So medieval medicine built enormous systems of explanation around ideas that felt logical for their time. Physicians studied stars alongside symptoms. They examined seasons, personality traits, weather patterns, diet, sleep, even emotional states. If you arrived complaining of headaches, your physician might not simply ask where it hurts. He might ask what foods you've eaten recently, whether you've been angry, whether the moon had changed, whether the weather had turned unusually damp, and somewhere in this process, you might begin wondering if your headache was becoming significantly less important than whatever theory was developing around it. But here's what makes this fascinating rather than ridiculous. Medieval doctors were not stupid people wandering around making random guesses. Many were deeply educated according to the standards of their age. They studied classical texts, memorized complex theories, debated ideas passionately, and genuinely wanted to help people survive. That's important because history sometimes creates an unfair illusion that people in the past simply lacked intelligence. They didn't. They lacked information. There's a difference. Intelligence asks questions. Information determines which answers are available. And medieval physicians were working inside a world where microscopes did not yet reveal bacteria, where infection remained invisible, where viruses existed entirely beyond human understanding. Imagine trying to solve puzzles while missing half the pieces and not even realizing pieces were missing. That's medieval medicine. Sometimes they accidentally stumbled toward treatments that helped. Certain herbs reduced inflammation. Honey occasionally prevented infection. Rest and hydration quietly succeeded, while doctors took credit for more dramatic interventions. But sometimes the opposite happened. Sometimes the treatment itself became more dangerous than the illness. And that is where medieval medicine becomes both fascinating and slightly terrifying. Because humanity has always believed something very powerful. Doing something feels better than doing nothing. Action creates comfort. A treatment feels safer than uncertainty, even if nobody truly understands what the treatment is doing. People wanted physicians who looked confident, sounded intelligent, and acted decisively. Hesitation felt frightening. Certainty felt reassuring, even if certainty happened to be spectacularly incorrect. Somewhere tonight, in a medieval town, a worried family sits beside candlelight, while footsteps approach outside their door. The physician has arrived, carrying leather bags filled with instruments and remedies. Hope enters the room with him. Fear enters with him too. And nobody inside realizes that the next few hours are about to become a very unusual chapter in medical history. Hey guys! Tonight our journey through medieval medicine continues. And by now, you've survived the first terrifying realization: getting sick in the Middle Ages was dangerous. But now comes the second realization: actually being treated could become its own adventure entirely. The physician has arrived, his robes dragging softly across the wooden floor as candlelight flickers against stone walls. Family members step aside respectfully because medicine during this period carried a strange mixture of science, ritual, philosophy, and authority. The physician opens his leather satchel slowly with the confidence of a man who absolutely intends to solve the problem, even if reality has different plans. Inside are herbs, cloth wrappings, metal tools, glass containers, handwritten notes, and generations of inherited medical ideas. You watch carefully because somewhere in that bag exists the thing that might save your life, or at the very least dramatically complicate it. The doctor approaches and begins studying you with serious concentration. He doesn't immediately touch your forehead or ask about symptoms the way modern medicine might. Instead, observation becomes a performance. Your skin color matters. Your breathing matters. The sound of your voice matters. Your mood matters. Everything becomes a clue because the body is viewed not as individual organs working together, but as a giant balancing system where every strange detail might reveal hidden truth. The physician studies your face thoughtfully and asks questions that seem increasingly unrelated to your original problem. Have you been sleeping well? Have you recently felt sadness, anger, fear? Have you eaten more fish than usual? Have your dreams been unusual? You stare for a moment because somehow your fever has transformed into an investigation involving emotions and seafood. But medieval medicine believed body and mind were deeply connected. Illness wasn't merely physical. Your emotions themselves could become dangerous. Too much sadness might cool the body excessively. Too much anger could overheat the blood. Excessive happiness, strangely enough, could also become suspicious. Moderation was everything. Somewhere deep inside medieval medical theory existed a quiet belief that the body wanted balance naturally, and sickness happened when life itself pushed too hard in one direction. Then comes the urine flask. And this moment feels strangely official because medieval physicians loved urine analysis with remarkable dedication. Glass flasks containing samples would be lifted towards sunlight and examined with intense seriousness. Color charts existed. Entire diagrams existed. Doctors stared into these bottles with the determination of astronomers searching the night sky for answers. Dark urine meant something. Pale urine meant something. Cloudy urine meant something else entirely. Sometimes physicians believed they could diagnose dozens of conditions simply by studying liquid in a bottle. To modern eyes, it seems strange, but oddly enough, this practice occasionally stumbled into accidental usefulness because urine actually can reveal signs of illness. The problem was interpretation. A physician might correctly notice that something looked unusual and then connect it to a completely incorrect explanation involving humors, planets, or invisible bodily imbalance. It's like solving half a mystery while accidentally blaming the wrong suspect. And then there were astrological charts because medicine and the heavens often traveled together during this era. Physicians sometimes consulted star positions before deciding treatments. Certain body parts were believed to correspond with zodiac signs. The head belonged to Aries. The feet belonged to Pisces. Timing mattered because the heavens themselves were thought to influence health. Some doctors avoided certain procedures during specific moon phases because disturbing the body at the wrong celestial moment felt dangerous. Imagine arriving with severe stomach pain only to hear, "Normally, I would help immediately," but unfortunately, the stars appear somewhat uncooperative today. You would probably have mixed feelings about that explanation. Yet none of this felt strange to medieval society because the universe itself was viewed as connected. Humans weren't separate from nature or the heavens. Everything influenced everything else. Health reflected cosmic harmony. Disease reflected disruption. And within that worldview, every action made sense. The physician wasn't randomly guessing. He was trying to read an enormous, invisible system connecting human beings to the entire universe itself. Outside, the wind moves through narrow streets while church bells echo softly in the distance. Inside, candles burn lower. The doctor finishes his examination and finally nods with quiet confidence. That expression should probably concern you slightly because he now believes he understands the problem. And medieval physicians with confidence often led patients toward very memorable experiences. Because diagnosis was only the beginning. Treatment is where things become truly interesting. Hey guys, tonight our journey through medieval medicine continues. And unfortunately for our patient, the physician has now reached the most dangerous stage of the evening, confidence mixed with treatment. Diagnosis was one thing. Diagnosis involved thoughtful expressions, mysterious questions about emotions, long stares into bottles of urine, and occasional glances toward the heavens. Treatment was where theory stopped being ideas and started becoming reality. The physician slowly closes his notes, folds his hands behind his back, and announces with complete certainty that your body has fallen out of balance. Somewhere inside you, invisible forces have shifted. Perhaps excessive heat has overtaken your system. Perhaps coldness has spread where warmth belongs. Perhaps one of your humors has become overactive and decided to behave like an unruly guest at a gathering. Whatever the cause, something must now be done. And medieval medicine deeply believed in doing things. Action created reassurance. Action felt powerful. People wanted visible effort because visible effort looked like healing. So treatment often became dramatic because dramatic treatments felt important. The physician begins preparing herbs carefully across the wooden table. Strange smells slowly fill the room. Crushed leaves, ground roots, oils mixed with unfamiliar powders. Medieval medicine actually possessed surprising knowledge about plants gathered over generations of observation. Monasteries often maintained herb gardens, where monks studied plants and preserved medical texts. Certain herbs genuinely reduced pain. Some helped digestion. Honey occasionally protected wounds from infection, even though nobody understood bacteria yet. Garlic had properties people didn't fully understand, but occasionally benefited patients. Willow bark contained compounds related to what would eventually become aspirin. Nature sometimes helped humanity long before humanity understood why. But then came the problem that followed medicine throughout history. If a little helps, surely more helps more. Logic begins drifting into dangerous territory very quickly. Herbs become stronger mixtures. Stronger mixtures become complicated combinations. Soon someone somewhere is crushing together plants, minerals, animal products, and substances of extremely questionable origin because uncertainty encourages experimentation, and experimentation occasionally develops a worrying amount of enthusiasm. A patient complaining of stomach pain might receive bitter drinks mixed from herbs and powders so unpleasant they could make healthy people reconsider life decisions. A person with breathing problems might inhale smoke from burning mixtures because if the chest felt blocked, perhaps smoke could force something loose. Fever patients sometimes sat wrapped in blankets near heat because sweating looked productive. If the body expelled something, then surely illness must be leaving with it. Again, there was a strange logic beneath all of this. The body was viewed as something constantly trying to restore harmony. Medicine simply helped the process along. The problem appeared when helping quietly transformed into aggressively interfering, because medieval doctors also loved purging. If bad substances caused illness, then perhaps removing substances entirely became the answer. Laxatives appeared, emetics appeared, sweating treatments appeared. Patients drank liquids designed specifically to encourage violent reactions because discomfort looked convincing. Imagine already feeling miserable from sickness and then being informed that recovery begins with several hours of extreme unpleasantness because your body apparently needs encouragement. Somewhere a physician watches with satisfaction while a patient suffers dramatically and thinks excellent progress is occurring. To be fair, visible reactions were comforting because invisible causes frightened people. Nobody understood microorganisms. Nobody understood infection. Nobody understood viruses hiding silently inside the body. But if treatment caused obvious effects, then at least everyone could see something happening. Doing nothing felt frightening. Action felt safer even when action occasionally resembled organized chaos. And while all of this unfolds, outside the medieval world continues moving beneath dark skies. Market stalls close. Torches flicker against stone walls. Families gather around fires. Somewhere distant church bells ring through cold night air. Yet inside countless homes and clinics across Europe, people place faith in treatments they desperately hope will help. Because hope itself becomes medicine sometimes. Even when knowledge falls short, even when understanding remains incomplete, Humans continue searching for answers. They always have. The tragedy wasn't that medieval physicians wanted to hurt people. The tragedy was that they wanted so badly to heal them. And unfortunately, history is filled with moments where confidence arrived centuries before understanding did. But we still haven't reached the most unusual remedies waiting inside medieval medicine, because soon physicians are about to move beyond herbs and into treatments so strange that even the patients themselves probably stared for a moment and wondered whether everyone involved had quietly lost their minds. Hey guys, as our journey through medieval medicine slowly reaches its final chapter tonight, we arrive at something so strangely fascinating. Because beneath all the bloodletting, leeches, powders, mysterious liquids, and treatments that occasionally looked like elaborate experiments gone completely off the rails, there was something deeply human hiding underneath it all. Fear, hope, and the desperate refusal to simply stand still while illness carried people away. Imagine the medieval world for a moment. Night falls over a small stone village. Rain taps softly against rooftops. Fires flicker inside homes while cold wind slips through narrow streets. Somewhere nearby, a child develops a fever. A father notices strange coughing. A mother places her hand against warm skin and immediately feels fear tightening inside her chest, because sickness in the medieval world wasn't an inconvenience. It wasn't a few days under blankets watching television while drinking soup. Illness felt like a shadow entering the room without warning. A small cut could become deadly. A fever could appear in the morning and by nightfall completely change a family's future. Infection didn't announce itself politely. It simply arrived and often stayed. And people hated uncertainty then just as much as they hate it now. Humans have always hated uncertainty. We want explanations. We want causes. We want reasons. Most importantly, we want control. Medieval physicians were trying to create that control using the pieces available to them. They inherited ancient knowledge from Greek and Roman scholars. They copied manuscripts by candlelight. Monks carefully preserved medical texts across centuries. Physicians studied diagrams and observations and theories with genuine dedication. They weren't fools wandering through history accidentally carrying jars of leeches. They were people trying to solve impossible problems while standing in darkness without a flashlight. And honestly, when you look at it that way, medieval medicine starts feeling less ridiculous and more tragic, because they were searching for truth without possessing the tools needed to find it. They looked at symptoms and built explanations. They watched fever, swelling, pain, and death and tried connecting invisible dots. Sometimes they accidentally discovered something useful. Certain herbs helped. Clean honey occasionally protected wounds. Isolation sometimes slowed disease spread. Observation occasionally stumbled into truth. But many times they walked confidently in the wrong direction, because confidence and accuracy are not the same thing. History repeats that lesson constantly. The terrifying part isn't ignorance. The terrifying part is believing with complete certainty that you're right when reality quietly disagrees. But humanity kept learning. Slowly, painfully, generation after generation. Knowledge moved forward inch by inch. Mistakes became lessons. Questions became discoveries. Centuries later, microscopes appeared. Germ theory appeared. Surgery improved. Antibiotics arrived. Medicine transformed from educated guessing into evidence and testing and understanding. The road toward modern medicine wasn't a sudden leap. It was millions of people across thousands of years refusing to stop asking questions. Which means every strange treatment we laughed about tonight, every leech, every bizarre remedy, every physician staring thoughtfully into bottles of urine, every uncomfortable and occasionally horrifying attempt at healing became part of a larger story. A story about humanity trying desperately to understand itself. And maybe that's the strange beauty hidden inside medieval medicine. Because beneath all the chaos, beneath all the errors, beneath all the treatments that make modern people instinctively say absolutely not, there was still compassion. Someone wanted suffering to end. Someone wanted pain to disappear. Someone wanted another human being to survive until tomorrow morning.